So we are in for a very interesting panel. This panel right now is going to be about Syriac in India, in Syria. لو سمحتوا بس نستلزم بالصمت لو سمحتوا. Please. So as you all know, Syriac is an international language, and the Syriac language and culture have been spread all over the world. So this panel, as I said, is going to be about Syriac in India, in Syria, and in Germany. So our first speaker is Father Jacob ثيكيبارامبيل, who is the founder and director of the St. Afram Ecumenical Research Institute, or SIRI, in Kottayam in Kerala, South India. And it's an honor to have him with us. He's been at almost every Symposium Syriacum, International Symposium Syriacum, since the first one in Rome in 1972. We also have Isla Dmir-Khori, who is of Assyrian Syriac origin from Tur Abdin, and she is now living in Germany, doing her PhD at the Free University in Berlin. And we have Professor Harald Suhrmann, who is also from Germany, from the University of Bonn. Now, I will first introduce Father Jacob. He will be speaking about Syriac as a living culture, Ba'atro de Hinduoye, in the land of India, of the Indians. Isla will be speaking about identity amid conflict, the politicization and mobilization of Syriac Christians in northeast Syria during the civil war, 2011 to 2016. And Professor Suhrmann will be speaking about Assyrians in Germany, immigration and cultural work. Now, Father Jacob, the floor is yours. Please present your paper.
Nikolas, thank you very much for inviting me from India to speak about the reception of Syriac in the land of the Hinduoye, a term that is used by the Syrians. And I begin by mentioning some names like Professor Sebastian Brock. There were Professor Joseph Habi, and also His Holiness, His Beatitude Raphael Louis Sacco, and Bishop Thomas of Lebanon, Bishop Shak Isaac, who came to our first Syriac conference, World Syriac Conference, organized in Syria in 1987. I pay homage to all of them, and also His Holiness Mardinka visited also our institute, and when he was received in our small chapel dedicated to St. Thomas, he reminded us that before St. Thomas went to India, he passed through Mosul, and there is also a St. Thomas Church. Anyway, I am very grateful to Mar Abba and also His Beatitude Mar Sacco, who also was present in 1987 as one of the youngest priests to promote Syriac studies in India, and today he is now the Patriarch. So thank you very much. So I have changed a little bit my topic. Who are the Syriac Christians in India? When I say next, please go through the... So the Indian government, especially the first president of India, was very grateful for the Christian presence in India, especially mentioning the name of St. Thomas and his apostolate. So that quotation is there. Next one, please. So there you can see India and the Syrian Christians were mostly here in this west coast. And then later on now, Syrian Christians are spread all over India, and also internationally they are present. So geographically, it is there that the St. Thomas Christians are there. Next one, please. So you can see the route, maybe the arrival of St. Thomas or the Knanaya group, maybe in the 4th century. So whatever be the way, we have now about 9 million Christians of the Syriac tradition, and divided into 7 different churches. Next one, please. So you can see the 7 churches of Syriac tradition in Malabar. So this is the Archbishop of Goa, Meneses, and the Diemper of Synod that forced Latinization, and there was a group that protested against Latinization, and the result was the division of the original St. Thomas Christians into old group and new group. The old group were actually the Syro-Malabar people, and the new group naturally of the Syrian Orthodox tradition. Next one, please. So you can see all the 7 churches which has received the Syriac heritage. Here you have the East Syriac tradition, Syro-Malabar Catholic Church, and the Assyrian Church of the East, under the authority of Abba now. And all the other 5 are from the West Syriac tradition. So you can see the Malabar Independent Syrian Church, Mar Thoma Syrian Church, St. Thomas Evangelical Church, Jacobite Syrian Church, and Malangara Syrian Orthodox Church, and Syro-Malangara Catholic Church, to which I belong. So all of them are proud to be Syriac, whether they learn actually or not. Anyway, they are proud of the Syriac heritage. Next one, please. So now we come to Syriac, East Syriac tradition. Yeah, maybe. Okay. So East Syriac tradition, you can see the churches by face. So that is actually the head of the Syro-Malabar Church. He has been replaced by a new one. Anyway, that is the greatest church. They may have around 4 million faithful. They follow the East Syriac tradition, like the Chaldeans here. Formerly, the Syro-Malabar people regarded Iraq and also East Syriac tradition as their mother church. Next one. So here again you see Mar Prem by 2 of his successors, Mar Yohanan and Mar I forget the name. Anyway, so so that okay, Mar Augen. Sorry, Mar Augen. So now we come to the West Syriac, right? So the first one is the Malangara Jacobite Syrian Orthodox Church under the Patriarch of Antioch, and they are equally strong. So you have the strength and also the number of bishops there. Next one. And now the Malangara Orthodox Syrian Church. Both these groups were under the Patriarch of Antioch, and according to the constitution, the supreme head of both these churches is the Patriarch of Antioch, but the Indian Orthodox Church says the Patriarch should not use too much of his authority in India. So that is the cause of division. Next one. So this is one of the oldest churches, the Malabar Independent Syrian Church. It is near Trichur. They are not very numerous, maybe about 15,000 people. So one single bishop is guiding the church. So, and the Mar Thoma Syrian Church, Mar Thoma Syrian Church tries to combine both the Syriac heritage and Reformation. So that is their speciality. But their bishops are naturally like Syrian Orthodox bishop, but most of the priests study Reformation more than Syriac. Now the bishops want to change that tendency. Next one. So this is our church, Syro-Malangara Catholic Church. We were all in the Orthodox Church. since 1930, Mar Ivanios accepted to be Catholic, and since then we have this Syro-Malankara Catholic Church. Next one. And the St. Thomas Christians of Malabar are in love with Syriac. They want to be, and it is an honor to be known as Syrian Christians and St. Thomas Christians. Next one. So we have some manuscripts, and this is the oldest manuscript which we have. It was brought from Gargar, Turkey. That is the oldest one which we have, 1588. Next one. We have 50 manuscripts. So here you find Trichur 3 East Syriac manuscripts, Hudra and Kashkul, and this is the source of all the Hudra editions of Trichur, and that is used in almost all the Assyrian church in the whole world. The second edition was done by Marmelis from Australia. So our Nikolas will be able to say more about that. And then the communication with the patriarch with the local churches was in Syriac. So there were always experts who could read letters from Antioch or write back to Antioch. So here is one example of Patriarch Mar Afram's first letter to Tripunithara Church in 1938. Next one. And it is a custom to have something written Syriac on the foundation stone of churches or church-related buildings. So here you can see Yah, Marmalach, and Bishop Pallikaparambil, Bishop of Palai, who wrote on the foundation stone in Syriac. And then we have Karshuni, Malayalam. But Karshuni cannot be understood without the East Syriac vocalization and pronunciation. So you can see Va on the first. So all Malayalis cannot read that. Only those who know East Syriac punctuation can read this Malayalam Karshuni. Next one. So Yah became the symbol of especially East Syriac churches. On churches and also on signatures of bishops, you find this, Yah. Okay. And we have a lot of Malayalam words from Syriac. So you have some words which are understood even by Hindus. Abun, Agal Karasa, Alaha, Almaya, Amin, Anida, and so on. Next one. So we have also dictionary in Malayalam. So the first one was, I think, 1940. So Syriac Malayalam. Then the three-language Malayalam lexicon by Father Tali. So you see, in Kerala, there are dictionaries to be used by Malayalis and also others. So our Syriac experts were really experts to produce even dictionaries. And then the liturgical books. At first, we had only Syriac texts. Then later on, we had parallel texts, Malayalam and Syriac. And now, most of the liturgical texts are without Syriac at all. So that is not a development, that is a deviation. And then we have the church decoration. So liturgical spaces. Here you find Kadamatam St. George's Church belonging to the Antiochian tradition. So here you have the date of the completion, and then also the Honau Taravam Le Rahame, that hymn which you find in most of the sanctuaries in West Syriac tradition everywhere, I think also in Germany and in... then we have tabelito. On that, every altar should have a tabelito with the name of the bishop and also of the church, but written always in Syriac as a cross, you can see. And that is even practiced even today to have that stabilito in Syriac. So Syriac heritage and enrichment for Malayalam. So we will have some evidences of that. Next one, please. So we have Reverend Dr. Kuyan Koropiscapa عنكاوا, who lived up to 103 years old, Syriac Melphone. So Melpans were responsible for the formation of the clergy. He used to teach Syriac music, Syriac language, and also a little bit of legal literature and other texts. Next one. And we have the grammar produced by Indians. So here, two-volume grammar by Father Thomas Arayathanal, who read a paper in the first Symposium Syriacum. And there's also a grammar produced by, I have only 5 minutes. Okay, next one. So you see the Malayalam editions which will help people to study Syriac. Next one. So we have also authors who write Syriac grammar in singable version. So Father Emmanuel Tali has written a Malayalam grammar which can be sung. Next one. So these are some of our publications by Kurian عنكاوا Koropiscopo, the Gospel of Matthew, and Concise Syriac English Dictionary, and Moran Etho is a publication of Syriac. Next one. Next one, please. So Syriac epigraphy. Next one. So you see some of the manuscripts written by Indians. So some Indians went to Iraq and came back as a Syriac scribe, and we have a ثيكيبارامبيل priest who copied the whole New Testament in Syriac. He belongs to the Syro-Malabar Church. Here you can see the Kashkul in Kotamangalam by an Indian scribe. Next one.
Can we change it?
So, next one. So, this is the name of the scribe there, Abraham Mathai, an Indian scribe from Kotamangalam, 1585. So, every priest had to copy the anaphora text. So, here is one example. So, each new priest had to copy the anaphora text and decorate as he wanted. This is one example. Then Syriac inscriptions. So most of the important and historical details were preserved not in Latin, not in English, not in Malayalam, but in Syriac. A good number of Syriac inscriptions are visible on churches, on crosses, on tombs, and so on. So here is one Syriac inscription by Thomas Kunemakal. He prepared it for his church. Next one. So this is from Mara Prem's church in Trichur. Next one. So this should be one of the oldest inscription of the Cathedral of Palay Diocese. Unfortunately, it is not complete because on the other side, the altar has been built, so the date cannot be fixed. Next one. Then Mulanduruthi, you can see the Syriac inscription, Marthoman Church, AD 1575. Next one. So here, Kantanad, you can see that, Beth Joachim. So Beth Joachim Markurilos, I think he came from Turabdin, and he has actually promoted the studies of Syriac. So a lot of Syriac inscriptions in and around Muatupura. Next one. So you see, this is Kotamangalam. So Memorial Eldomar Baselios. This is a very big church, and almost every Sunday there are 3 or 4 baptisms. All the maid children are called Baselios. So we have a lot of Baselios. So this is from Trichur, East Syriac inscription. Next one. So here we have the Kothamangalam Memorial of Eldomar Basilios, Walton, and it was dated. And this is the logo of the CMI Fathers, a quotation from 1 Kings 19, 10 and 14. Next one. So this is in the Kandanad Church. Next one. Tripunithara, St. Mary's Church. They have some tombs with Syriac inscriptions, the names of the priests and the date of their birth and date of burial. Okay. So you have the unique inscription on the bell. So it is in Kuravilangad and it was done in 1584. So this is some of the modern inscriptions of the Chaldean Church of the East of Mar Aprem. They are now systematically increasing the Syriac inscriptions like Bible quotations. Next one. Another view. Next one. So this is a biblical quotation. So St. John 16 and Hebrews. So on the altar you can find this Kothamangalam Church, which gives the date and also the hymn of. This is again Kothamangalam. Next one. Next one. So this is the East Syriac inscription in Kudamalur. Next one. So this is an inscription. Hope you will be able to read that. Some of the CMI fathers could not read it. Only Alain and François and Zel Labos Outsep. So go to, so that's because it was St. Thomas Monastery. Honau tarava mile rahame valgau mene yisrahame ulhato yabai rahame menmoro da mile rahame. With that, I finish. Otherwise, others will not have enough time. So thank you very much for listening.
Sound check. Sound check. Are you here?
Shlama. It's an extraordinary honor to stand here in front of you and to present on my topic, identity amidst conflict. As with Father Jacob already started, we will continue on the traces of Mar Thoma, but this time in a different region. Unfortunately also, I never expected to hold this presentation in an area which was likewise affected by the atrocious deeds of Daesh, ISIS. So it's a pleasure and an honor to present it here, and I'm happy to gain more insights from the local community. I'm not here to give you an overview, just a synoptic collection of what we in the diaspora gain access to information from, since it's very difficult to have an insight while being in Europe or the States. So I appreciate your patience with me. I will start to not talk too much about the settlement story, since I think many people will know. I will follow up the 1970, since the Assad regime, political participation of the Syrian Christians in the Jazeera region. and then follow up with the Arab Spring and conclude. As we know, since the early 20th century, the followers of Syriac Christianity in the Middle East has experienced a gradual exodus, starting with the Hamidian massacre, exclamating in the Saipho and the massacre of Simele. This led to a widespread movement from the Saipho and the massacre of Simele, which I will later follow on, to the region of Al-Hasakeh. And despite this, these severe challenges, they have shown resilience in their efforts to resist the disappearance of the centuries-old culture and identity. Today, the indigenous Syriac Christian community of the Jazeera region find themselves caught between conflicting forces as a result of the Syrian war. Their status as a long-standing established community serves one way as a justification for the defense of their homeland, and on other ways, the further self-determination of a nation in this region. On the other hand, the long-standing protection provided by the Assad regime remains a viable option for them. So my research concerns over whether or not the Syriac Christian communities to any time of the Syrian civil war could form a political unity under the given circumstances. I don't have an answer until today. And this dual approach between alliancing with Kurdish forces and protecting patronage from the Assad regime is a complex situation and is actually rooted already prior to the Syrian civil war. I will, just to follow up the presentation, give a slight insight into the numbers of how the Syrian civil war affected the Jazeera region by numbers. We have in 2011, these are numbers just from the Muhafadha al-Hasakeh. This is not the Syrian numbers. We have for the Syrian Orthodox community a number of 46,500 in 2011, following in 2019, 21,715 remaining. The Syriac Catholic, likewise, 0.5% of the civilians displaced or moved. For the Assyrian Church of the East, it's from 90,505 to 988 left over in the region, and Chaldean Catholic also around 1,000 people displaced worldwide. To come back to the history of why they settled there, I mentioned already that the Saipho led to a rise of settlement to this region, and the massacre of Simele also, where main people from the Simele region went to settle down on the 35 villages alongside the Khabo River region. And today we'll almost find none of these villages anymore inhabited. So this region was already from the beginning of the long 19th century, with a modern settlement history, coined by inhabitants which were displaced from genocides, from not being wanted in their region. And Seda Altuk, which I mainly rely on my work, summarized the population largely consists of the last groups of the undesirables, for whom Turkish nationalism left no space, genocide survivor Christian, belonging to different sects, among with Orthodox Armenians and Orthodox Syriacs from the majority, and Syriac Protestant Syrian Catholics and Armenian Catholics from the minorities. So these people made up the fundament of the Hasakeh region later on, with the fled Sheikh Said Kurdish revolutionaries, let's call them. Main focus is to go on is to understand the dynamics and why the evolution and formation alongside the lines we see today have shifted in that way. I will come to the church structure. I will not go into detail about the church denomination, naming. I think we all are quite aware about it, as we are among academics. But what really imprinted and still is a very strong impact on the Syriac identity, especially in the Jazeera and everywhere, is the formation of the identity around the church. which was later on in the Ottoman Empire formalized in the millet system, which actually already has quite longer existed in an unformalized way. And this millet system functioned as a quasi-autonomous unit with their own legal, juridical, fiscal, educational, charitable, and religious function. So the church, in its way, it takes over all the responsibilities a quasi-state notion state would take for the communities. So it's reasonable that people know there's funding coming from the church, charitable work. Usually women used to do this work in Syria. I know if you donate money from Western countries, the women will take it because they know the best insight on where and which family has which necessity. Also, the church is taking up leisure activities and so on. I was interviewing and collecting data from a displaced Hasake community in Jaakob in Holland, close to Ephraim Monastery. And the youngsters, they were displaced when they were 12. And they told me they can even remember that their church was actually their whole identity. And they continued. They have a keshaf established in 2016 in the Netherlands. So we're still thriving. The next point, and I will rely here on the work of Raid Gharib from 2012, is the Assyrian national consciousness, and there is a certain amount of lacks or objectives which hinder unified national consciousness. These are complex evolution, territorial, regional varieties, then a lack of mass supports. A lot of people aren't politically active or interested, and of course the confessionalism and the diasporic challenge and the emergence of new identities, as we've seen in late 50s with the Aramaic and Chaldean nationalism prior to the one from 1865 nationalism. So now I would like to go a bit deeper in what happened in Syria. I will just go through it until we reach 2011. The people moved there, then the rise of Pan-Arabism, which led to objection from behalf of the Kurdish and Syria communities because they couldn't assimilate to this ideology. They were just fleeing from Turkey because of the assimilation politics. And then we have 1957, the first Assyrian Democratic Organization. This doesn't mean something happened before. There was Rafidain, established in 1934 with cultural programs, language programs, mainly based and helped by the French mandate. They were working on military bases and schools of the French mandate, already processing institutions. And so we have the ADO, which aimed to awaken the members of the various Syriac churches so as to realize national unity and struggle for the existence of their people, distinctive identity, and national rights. 1950, it starts that the Pan-Arabist party start to resettle Arabs from other regions, neighboring regions, to block the homogeneous population of the Jazeera. So the people start to move from their villages to Hasake, to Kamishlo, to bigger cities, or to Halab even. In 1967, we have more Pan-Arabism extremism rising with the closure of even cultural institutions. And then we have a shift, a radical shift. We do have 1970, the in-power gaining of the Assad regime. There it was different kind of politics was aimed to secure political favor and alliance by giving minority certain kind of privileges, which is not connected by giving money or something or different legal system, but just to leave them alone and to fund in a way cultural services and to let it unhindered happen. So services like Akitu, which is very interesting because Akitu was mainly learned or imported from the people from Simele to the people, or brought with them the tradition to Al-Hasake, to the region, and the people from the Turabdin region, which haven't been so familiar with it, learned and engaged with the tradition of Akitu there because it was long out that they haven't practiced it anymore. So it's really beautiful that it was revived through the exchange of different groups, and not different groups, but through the movement. And all happened already with a general suspicion, so there was always mukhabarat and so on and so forth, and iconography. And the 1970s, you have a higher suppression, especially of political participation. If you could participate politically, just in the Ba'ath party, nothing else was allowed. So a lot of Syriacs joined the party officially. Others were against it, forming alliances with Kurdish groups as the PKK and the underground, which are the predecessors of what we see today with the POD and the Syriac Union Party. I will come to that. In 1978, you have a harsh split in the Syria community. You have the Assyrian Democratic Party establishing itself on claims of being the true Assyrians or something else. I think it was political problems because someone wanted to have more money, maybe. I don't know. Maybe you tell me more. So unfortunately, this led to another establishment of a group. And then also in the 90s, you have a more militant movement. I would say it's not a political party, the Dauronoye, which are, I would say, more as an ideology. It's like a freedom fighter party. Maybe it can adapt to different parties. It's an underlying ideology, and they worked vehemently with the PKK, but not with parts of another PKK, which they accused to. Anyways, yeah, I will not elaborate in detail. Exactly, and so we have these groups emerging and still existing, some of them, and then we come to the actual Arab Spring. So the region was already kind of the strive for self-determination, which we see then when the Arab Spring starting in March, and the civilians claiming their political freedom, serving as a perfect soil for change. And the Syriacs and the Kurds used this political instability, of course. They had formed the TEVDEM, which is a coalition in late 2011, and part of it was funded with the SVP, Syriac Union Party, which worked very tight with the Democratic Union Party, the Kurdish one. I can hand out some papers. There's the Aramaic Surite transcription, so maybe if it helps you, I just have 10 of these. But because I don't know if the English terms are familiar to many of you. I'm sure you use in Arabic in Surat. So, yeah, in late 12, we have it's very important to note that the militias formed, they were in first act of self-defense against Islamism during the rise of ISIS, and you also need to bear in mind that Syriac Christians, as most Christians in the Middle East, haven't been military trained for over centuries. There are small, smite, extraordinary examples like the Haqqari soldiers or groups who were trained, but in general, Christians in the Middle East didn't have military training since they weren't part of military armies for as long as the Ottoman Empire, and later on also not regularly. It wasn't regularly. So most of these Syriac groups, they form actually self-defense groups, and they form themselves around their neighborhoods. They never reached into a foreign territory or something. They mainly stayed where they live. So as the late 2012, the Khabo Guards, then we have the Nature, which are heavily patriotic, confessional maybe, I don't know, but yeah, you can maybe tell me more about it later. They're not active anymore as far as I know, these two. Then we'll have in 2013 the more official organizations forming themselves, resembling the Kurdish YPG and YPY and Azayish model. So you have the military, you have a political party, military arm, security force, and it's like Daesh and YPG, and then you have the PYD. It's the same resemble, and they're alliancing with them or sitting equally. And then you have, in late 2013, another group emerging, which is the Gesorgte Protection Force. And now comes the interesting part with the Sutoro, which is also security police, but they're aligned with the regime. So you have two Syria groups in one town being in contrast with each other about the political affiliation, which is very, if you hear it from a Western ear, it's quite, interesting to see this development, I would say, and they weren't fighting against each other, but opposing in political opinion, but yeah. From 2014, we see a slight collaboration. We see the SDF, partially groups with the regime were time-wise joining the SDF because there was a bigger enemy, ISIS, and then we want to keep in mind February 2015 in the massacre of the Khabu Valley. I think, And following this war, the SDF formalized itself more. During that time, we had the autonomous administration of Northeast Syria formalized itself already in 2013. In 2016, officially they declared the parastate entity. And the Syriac participation is likewise, you can have your own parties, and we also have seats in the parliament, which are seen, the SUP, for example, had in 2016 3 seats from 43. To what extent this parliament is really giving reforms or political decision-making is a question for itself, maybe in my next work, but for now on, and this is the overview. So you have a Syriac Union Party with Shogoriev, 3 of 43. You have the Syrian Democratic with 1 seat. That's 2 for now. And now this puts us into the question, did it reach something of political agency? Did it make the situation better for Syriacs in the region, or did it actually not change? But also more importantly, was there unity political in any sense to any time? And what are the future perspectives? I think one challenge is through the new Kurdish autonomy is the question of curricula, the question of double taxation, double military service, which is difficult because it still is in the territory of the Syrian region or Syrian nation state. So this is a question which remains. Prior you were a peripheric center where nobody really cared what you do. Now you are sitting in situ with the person doing the decision. So I guess it will be a challenge. But if we continue, or the people continue to work it out, they have their own parties. It's what it's resembling more. And yeah, I guess I don't want to talk too much. I came here to learn more from the people living in these regions who would like to tell me how the situation is, because as I said, for Westerners, people living abroad, it's really difficult to access these data. Not a lot of people know about the situation of Syriacs. They know a lot about Kurdish situation. And I think it's very important to highlight the existence of Assyrian Syriacs in the homeland, in the diaspora, to make them aware about the political situation of us. And exactly, if you have information, please let me know. And I want to end with Naam Faye, who conclude a single nation is only possible when everyone lives in unity. So hopefully one day. Taudi, Sagi.
So I like to thank first the organizers of this first Athra Symposium and my invitation. It was a great pleasure. My paper is on Assyrians in Germany, immigration. I deal with the immigration of Assyrians, Syriacs, and Chaldeans to Germany. There are three terms that refer to different entities. On the one hand, they refer to people who belong to a church or a religious community. Assyrian is, in this context, refers to members of the Holy Apostolic and Catholic Assyrian Church of the East, often called the Assyrian Church of the East. The adjective Assyrian was added after the separation of the Chaldean Church. In this context, also, Syriac refers to members of either the Syriac Orthodox or Syriac Catholic churches. And Chaldean refers to members of the Church united with Rome after the separation of the Chaldean Church and the Church of the East. Liturgically, ritually, and according to the tradition, the Apostolic Church of the East and the Chaldean Church belong together, while the two Syriac churches also share a common tradition. The ecclesiastical In the ecclesiastical sphere, the Syriac Orthodox Church also used in the history Assyrian in their names for a long time. When Ephraim Bar Saum became their patriarch in 1932, he had a strong anti-Assyrian attitude, and Assyrian was replaced by Syriac, a process that took a long time. When I refer to the members of the Apostolic Church in the following, I will not use the term Assyrian to avoid confusion. This also applies to the Syriac churches. In the political sphere, Assyrian refers to a group that sees itself as an ethnic or national entity. Such a group is defined by shared narratives and traditions. The most comprehensive use of the term Assyrian was at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, after the World War I. It was attended by a delegation of various religious communities. The delegation considered itself Assyrian and wanted to represent the following groups: Nestorians, Chaldeans, Jacobites, Maronite elements, Persian Assyrians in Russia, Muslim Assyrians, and Sheikhs and Yazidis. Assyrian is used here to describe an ethno-cultural group. I use the term Assyrian to refer to Chaldeans, Syriacs, and Assyrians insofar as they see themselves as an ethnic or national entity, which is not uncontroversial among the various groups. A possible equivalent to Assyrian in this sense is Aramean, which also includes the Maronites or only the Syriacs. The immigration of Assyrians to Germany began in 1960s with the recruitment of guest workers from Turkey. The economic miracle of the 1950s led to a labor shortage. In 1961, a recruitment agreement was signed with Turkey and other countries. Immigration was primarily motivated by economic policy. It is likely that several thousand Assyrians came to Germany between 1963 and the 1970s. The numbers can only be estimated because the immigration authorities do not record religious affiliation. The immigrant Christians from Turkey were hardly recognized as such by the public and were mostly regarded as Muslim Turks. As guest workers, they were allowed to work in Germany and were expected to return to their home country when they retired or were no longer needed. Only a few Assyrians, guest workers, and students came from Syria. Communities formed in industrial cities. Despite the ban of recruitment in 1973, Assyrians continued to come to Germany, not as guest workers, but as refugees seeking asylum in Germany. The initial reason for this was the armed struggle between the PKK and Turkey, which has continued in varying degrees since 1984. The number of refugees is unknown, as the number of Christian refugees. The first Gulf War from 1980 to 1988 also caused a significant wave of refugees from both Iran and Iraq. No statistics are available on religious affiliation. With the American invasion of Iraq in 2003 and the rise of the so-called Islamic State, as well as the armed conflicts in Syria since 2011, many Christians left the region, and we just heard about it. It is estimated that the number of Christians in Iraq has been declined from 1.5 million in 2000 or before 2003 to about 250,000 today. This is about 85% who have left the country. Since Chaldeans, members of the Apostolic Church of the East and Syriac Christians of both denominations lived predominantly in Iraq, the majority of Christians who came to Germany from Iraq will have come from these churches. Christians who are considered Assyrians came also to Germany from Syria, but this group made up only a portion of the Christians in Syria. Smaller numbers of Assyrian Christians also came to Germany from other countries such as Lebanon or Jordan. An indication of the numbers of Assyrians who came to Germany and the time of their arrival is provided by the establishment of congregations and associations. However, these figures are based on estimates and at best on counts of the church's members. It should be noted that Christian Assyrians already came to Germany before the founding of the congregations. In addition, members of other denominations attended church service of other denominations because there was no service in their right or the liturgical celebration was too far away. On the Catholic side, Christians were expected to participate in the liturgical celebration of the Latin Church until priests of their own right were available. In addition, some Roman Catholic dioceses offered Arabic language liturgies that did not take into account the different rites. This factor shows that while the history of church planting provides a clue, the margin of error is very high. Information on church planting itself is scarce, but there is a directory of currently existing churches. The Chaldean Church was the most recent church plant. The Chaldean congregation in Nuremberg was planted in 2002. In the same year, according to his curriculum vitae, Peter Pato became pastor of a Catholic parish and remained also until 2010. As head of the Chaldean mission, he was responsible for the Chaldeans in Bavaria. In 2009, the Chaldean community in Essen was officially founded and has since celebrated its liturgy in the parish of St. Albertus Magnus. In 2020, the congregation took over another bigger church, because the community is steadily growing. The first Center for Chaldean Christians in Europe was opened in Stuttgart in 2017. On weekends, 400 to 500 Chaldean Christians gather there. At that time, the number of Chaldeans in Germany is estimated at 6,000, of which about 2,000 were in Stuttgart. 80% came from Iraq, 10% from Syria and Turkey. A few years later, in 2021, the pastor Sami Daka of the Chaldean community in Munich estimated the number of Chaldeans in Germany at 20,000. This does not necessarily indicate a rapid increase of Chaldean Christians in Germany, but also how different the estimates are. The Chaldean League in Germany is an association that advocates for the interests of Chaldeans living in Germany and promotes coexistence with various events and activities. It was founded in Essen in 2016 and promotes coexistence in Germany. They have a website. It is in Arabic and German, but not in Syriac or Aramaic. For the sake of time, I will not speak about two other churches, but go directly to the biggest church in Germany from the Oriental churches. The Syriac Orthodox Church is the largest Oriental church in Germany and has extensive structures. There is the Syriac Orthodox Monastery of St. Jacob of Saruk in Warburg, a town in the middle of Germany, which is also the seat of the bishop. The Archdiocese of the Syriac Orthodox Church of Germany has about 100,000 members and spread over 60 parishes. In 1970, there was a priest of the Syriac Orthodox Church in Germany named Petrus Schusche. He came from Midyat. In 1971, he established the first Syriac Orthodox parish in Augsburg, southern Germany. In 1975, a priest came to West Berlin. In Augsburg, Father Petrus Ongunch founded a Syriac center to teach the members in Aramaic and printed a multi-volume reading primer and a small catechism in Syriac and Turkish in 1977. In 1979, Mor Ilyos Yeshu Zizek was consecrated archbishop with the responsibility for Germany, among other areas. In the mid-90s, it was estimated that there were 40,000 Syriac Orthodox living in Germany. The Warburg Monastery was purchased by the Syriac Orthodox Church in 1996. It was not only a spiritual center, but also a cultural and social meeting place for the Syriac Orthodox community. It offers space for worship, prayer, and spiritual renewal, and is a place where the deep religiosity and spirituality of the Syriac Orthodox tradition is cultivated. In addition, the monastery is an important place for organizing church activities and events that strengthen and promote the community. The Syriac Orthodox Church has achieved the same status as the Roman Catholic and Protestant status in several German states. It is therefore able to provide Syriac Orthodox religious education in schools, in governmental schools, in various places where also Aramaic is used. There are Syriac Orthodox cultural associations that organize cultural, religious, educational, and sport events. They also serve as meeting places for the community. Many Assyrian associations are non-denominational and are dedicated to the preservation of Assyrian culture. They see themselves as association for Syriac-speaking Christians whose origin lie in the region of northern Mesopotamia that is now part of several states. Other Assyrian associations are closely linked to church congregations, as are denominational associations. The first Assyrian association was founded in Berlin in 1971. In 1976, Assyrian Christians founded the first cultural association, Assyrian Union, in Berlin. In 1978, the first guest workers from Turkey founded the Mesopotamian Association in Augsburg. It serves as a cultural center and meeting place to preserve the cultural heritage of the Assyrians and to act as a bridge to the German population. In 1979, local associations joined together to form the Central Association of Syrian Associations in Germany and Europe sections. Its main goals are cultural and public relation works as well as support of Syriac refugees. The Assyrian Youth Association of Central Europe was founded in 2002. The Syriac Orthodox Church rejects the Assyrian movements because its purpose are political goals that are far removed from the church. More Julius Isa Cicek, the bishop of the Syrian Orthodox Church, opposed the Syrian organization by threatening those priests who cared for their parishes indiscriminately with the excommunication. The situation was officially diffused with the official neutrality resolution in 1981. The first Syriac-Aramaic association was founded in 1977. The split with the Assyrian Association manifested itself with the founding of the Federation of Syriac-Aramaic Associations in Germany in 1985. Today, the federation is called the Federal Association of Armenians in Germany. An attempt at reunification failed in 1992. Both churches and the association, as well as non-denominational Assyrian associations, try to preserve an important element of tradition and identity by teaching Syriac language. This is also done through the religious education in the Syriac Orthodox churches and through catechism in other churches. There are also magazines, videos, etc. in Syriac language. However, with each generation born in Germany, it becomes more difficult to master the original mother tongue. In other churches, sermons are already being preached in German. This trend will continue, so that one day almost the entire liturgy will probably be in German. For the church's right and ecclesiastical affiliation will be decisive mark of identity. Religious education and catechetical instruction, as well as attractive pastoral care, can strengthen church membership. To this end, it is certainly necessary that the distance to the churches are not too great. In the first generation, people come together in the church to exchange ideas in their mother tongue, to remember their homeland, and so on. but this incentive will diminish over the years. Mixed marriages will also contribute to an alienation of Assyrian culture. Nevertheless, the churches have the greatest opportunity to preserve the identity of the faithful through the liturgy, rites, and religious festivals. Secular association will find it more difficult to keep Assyrianism alive. As long as Syriac or its dialects are alive, the language will also be a strong bond. In the following generations, it will become weaker and weaker. Traditional festivals and rituals will have to form the core element. The more the members are integrated into German society and assimilated, the more exotic the festivals and the rites will become. Whether they will be more than a reminder of times gone by will depend on whether they can develop it in such a way that they are meaningful to a segment of German society and provided a valuable to their lives. Thank you very much.
I'll just ask all of our speakers if they could come back and sit on the panel because we'll be taking questions. Now, if anybody has any questions, please put your hands up and I'll get this young gentleman here to pass the microphone around. So we have a question from Brother Wissam. Wait. راح تسأله بالعربي مو؟
ايه
على مود بس يلبسون بتعرفي عربي بس أبونا if you can wear this please and also there's one there for Professor Surman. Okay تفضل.
سؤالي هو بالسريان بالهند.
ايه
اكيد يلده هو من بغداد، فهالمعلومه ما اعرف اذا هو عنده هالمعلومه ولا لا، لانه هو راهب كان في بغداد بس راح ارساليه الى الهند وقدر ان ينقل التراث السرياني بس هاي المعلومه حبيت اوصلها. سؤالي لل بروفيسور هارد، إذا موضوع العلاقات ما بين يعني الكنائس هو كثير معقد ومدى يتوصلون إلى حل بيناتهم، شنو دور مثلا الحكومة الألمانية بخصوص هذا الموضوع؟ اوكي شكرا.
That was a question for Professor Surman. Did you translate for him?
انه الكنائس تقريبا ما تتوصل الى حل بيناتهم لانه حصل خلافات نوعا ما، فهل الحكومه عندها مبادرات؟
The problem the possibility in Germany separation of church and society state, but separation does not or does allow a cooperation. And in order to get the possibility to teach in schools, governmental schools, and to collect taxes and some other privileges, it depends on the status. And there are two very important points. The first is that you must have somebody who says what is the true doctrine of the association. You must be, well, like a pope or like a bishop, something like this, who can say this is a doctrine and that is not our doctrine. The second is that the community must be stable and not just in Germany for just some years. So for the Oriental churches, it is stable in general, but the numbers of the most of the Oriental churches are too small until now. They must have also a certain number. If they get it, and it is not only related to Christianity, also there are Muslim associations, Muslim groups who have the same status as the Catholic Church and the Jews and so on. It depends on this criteria, and they must ask the recognition of the state when they fulfill these criteria and some others. It's okay.
Okay, we have another question from Rabbi Anwar. No, it wasn't a question, it was a comment. He was just saying that Yeldo was from
Okay, thank you to the moderator, the speakers. My comment or question is to Malfanito Isla. You spoke about identity in conflict. And I think is it the problem only identity in conflict or conflict in identity or both? Thank you.
I try to play with that because it's obvious it's a dichotomy. It's conflict, identity, identity in conflict, conflict in identity. But thanks that you see it likewise.
Question to Dr. ثيكيبارامبيل. Now, you mentioned that Syriac, it seems like it's really used only in liturgy, it seems like to me. And I think I heard you say there's about 4 million people who, I guess, they're Syriac, part of the Syriac church in both parts. Is there any attempt to, in a sense, like make something, like make it actually a living language, a daily conversational type language, like actually practice it rather than just constrain its use in the church or what have you? At least that's my impression. It's only used in church, correct?
At first, we had the entire liturgy in East Syriac for the East Syrians and West Syriac for the West Syrians. You know, the origin of Marthoma Syrian Church was with regard to the use of Syriac. Under the influence of the Anglicans, the Syrian Orthodox were asking for celebrations in local languages, but that was refused by the clergy and the bishops. And that gave rise to the origin of the Marthoma Syrian Church. So until then, the entire celebration was in Syriac. Even now, some of the Ramsho, Sapro are celebrated in seminaries in original Syriac language and melodies. There are also translations in Malayalam keeping the same melody and also the meaning. So the Syriac is there either as translation or as in original celebration.
But so, not as a daily life, because 4 million is pretty considerable size, right? But there's no attempt to actually use it in a daily life. In addition, let's say, to your other Malayam, I guess. That's my question.
What was that?
Is that clear?
Saying there's no attempt to use it as a language of daily life.
No. No, there is no, because in India we have a lot of languages, so to add one more, that would be difficult.
What is one more to 550?
But now there is a conscious effort in all the churches to learn, for example, Syriac melodies in the original language, Syriac hymns. So there is, within the community, there is an effort to reintroduce Syriac language and Syriac melodies.
Thank you to the three excellent presentations. My question is for Professor Suerman. You have underlined a point which is somehow very important for our community, for the Suriani. Yeah, you have underlined that we are really separated. There are different groups separated. And as an outsider, have an objective point of view. What would you suggest to look for a possible unification of the Suriani people as general? As you have underlined, we are in number, significant point in comparison with other cultures. How could we become all somehow unified in order to fight for our common cause?
That is a very difficult subject. We need, first of all, ecumenical work, working together. That's the basis. And why we have two churches or two church groups who share the common tradition. The Apostolic Church of the East and the Chaldean Church have the same roots, the same traditions. And attempts asked already to reunify, but I never have heard that there was ever in the history a reunification of separated churches. The same is for the Syrian Orthodox and the Syrian Catholic Church. They could unify because it's nearly the same thing. And the pastoral and the dogma is very close. There's not a big difference today. And they have an agreement offer the pastoral work to each other in situations where it is needed. It is in Germany, it will be for the Catholic churches, Oriental Catholic churches, much more difficult to preserve their identity and to continue a separate church.
So I'll say it in English for better understand it or provide it. So it's not a question, basically. I think it's more a clarification. There is several informations that are not so accurate. I understand it because of the lack of information over the internet or even from actual sources. Even now, I am going back to what happened during the years that Dr. Isa talked about, and I can't remember them in a good way, but I think we'll need to have a joint work to better understand those times that occurred in Syria and how they affected the Syriac people in general from all different sects. If I would have a question, it's going to be like, I believe that the unity is the way forward, or the only way forward for our people if we want to have something and if we want to learn anything from our experience in Iraq, basically. So unity would be the answer, but how can we reach it? What are the basic level of understanding, or more than basic level of understanding, between different groups or our different political and religious groups to be able to reach it in order to get to this unity?
Next question. My question is for you, please. You mentioned about Assyrian migration to Germany. How was Germany positioned against Assyrian refugees after Second World War? You mentioned about Assyrian migration to Germany. How was Germany position against Syrian refugees after Second World War?
How was Germany positioned against the Syrian refugees after the Second World War? But we will answer that after the last question. So the last question is on the
سؤالي بالعربي. سؤالي موجه للبروفيسور هارالد سورمان. يعني بروفيسور، على ماذا اعتمد في اعتبار الكنيسة الكلدانية مثلا أو السريانية ضمن الآشورية؟ يعني مثلا الكنيسة الكلدانية هي كاثوليكية ولكن ذات هوية قومية كلدانية، فأنت لماذا أدخلتها ضمن دائرة أوسع وسميتها بالآشورية؟ يعني مثلا اليوم كما تعرف يوجد خلاف. الكنيسة الكلدانية تعتبر نفسها كنيسة قومية حال الكنيسة النسطورية الآشورية أو الشرقية، وكذلك السريان حاليا لديهم نفس التوجه. لا أعرف يعني كيف، ما هو اعتمادك العلمي على ذلك؟ شكرا.
So maybe in my presentation I have had it a shortcut. So obviously why the Syriac Christian, Assyrian, Chaldean, whatever we want to call it now, in the Hasake did this approach, this dual approach, is obviously out of experience. I mean, they are relying on the majority, they are relying on the political power. So what if they would have chosen from the beginning to align with Kurdish and then turns out Kurdish autonomous region fails? They will have a problem with the other counterpart. So what they did is actually really clever. It's like Darwinism, it's not the survival of the fittest, but the survival of variety. And I guess Syriac Assyrians survived so long because they had and have a variety. So also to keep this in mind, not to see our variety and distinguishment and confessionalism as a burden, but sometimes also as a way which made us last longer. So to come to unity, I guess, well, if it's more stable political situation, it would be maybe to consider to have one political party, or I'm not sure. I don't want to talk for the people in place, to be honest. They need to decide إن لازم يقرروا. But I think it's strong also to advocate. It's very important for us in the West to get sources to archive and to let the Western world know, to get political support or whatever about our situation. Yeah, thank you.
Concerning after the World War II, that's a long period. It's of over 80 years. So it's changed very much. In the beginning, no Syrians, you speak of the Syriac churches, Syriac Christians coming for. There was no question about this because they were not asking for asylum at the time in the beginning. It came later with the problems in this region, with the war between Iran and Iraq and so on, or the PKK. But it was not a problem for the government to accept that. What we okay, and what it became a difficult in this when many people, many Christians asked asylum not only to Germany but to Europe or America, and the bishops here and the hierarchy asked them not to facilitate too much to get a visa or asylum to come to Germany because they wanted to keep the community in their home country. But this is a very difficult moral question also. How can you protect, has the church in the place a right to stop the people to go to another country, or do they have the right to go to another country and leave the country for a better life or a life which is protected when they are persecuted? But they German state and the German church were not exactly had not exactly the same opinion as the local hierarchy in these countries. They say that it is important that the individual can ask for exile if they are persecuted. And this is right even today when we are struggling very much in Germany with the refugees. The conflict between the Assyrian and Chaldean church, yes, that is a question of also of confessionalism and so on. They belong, Chaldean church must work in the frame of the Catholic Church on the one hand, but they are looking also for ecumenical work and to work together. So it depends on the persons and on the situation if there is a conflict between the Assyrian Church and the Chaldean Church. There were several attempts to unify, but nothing succeeded for some reasons.
Okay, I think that was a good end. Thank you very much, everybody. And we will see you for the coffee break and then the next keynote speaker. Thank you very much.